Hey everybody, Arnoldo Offerman here of Gear It First on behalf of IDJNOW. I'm really excited to present to you just a quick little mini seminar talking about the three main kinds of moving heads. Now there's in reality more than three, but there's three main categories. We have our beam, we have spot, and we have a wash. I'm going to use three different types of fixtures. They're in all sorts of different price ranges, but in reality they're a price range that all of you guys can afford. And if you have any questions on that, make sure you talk to the guys at IDJNOW. They'll hook you up with some special pricing. But now let's kind of move on and talk about moving heads, because moving heads originally started as a way to be able to do a spot or an effect here and then move it over here without really needing somebody to sit there and refocus the light. But it's evolved to so much more than that. We now use moving heads to project gobos, to create special effects, to hit clouds, you name it. But when you're looking at moving heads, you see so many different kinds. How do you know what's the right one for your application or your business choice or the lighting design choice that you want to do? Hopefully this video is really gonna alleviate a lot of those issues. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's begin. So first, let's talk about the beam fixture. Beam fixtures are incredible if you have haze. Otherwise, I'll be honest with you, they're worthless. Why? Because you really can't see anything of what's going on. Now, in the case of this guy, it has a little bit of eye candy and stuff around it, but the star of the show is that nice tight beam that comes out of it. A nice tight beam that you can't see without haze. So let's turn on some haze real quick. There we go. That's much better. You see that beam? And that beam shoots all the way around and you create some really cool effects. Why would you want to use a beam fixture? Well, the advantage of the beam fixture is that it just creates something really exciting in your show. It really helps your audience feel the energy because those beams are cutting through and moving around them. And there's many different kinds of beam fixtures. This is just an example here. But the beam fixture is great for school dances, for high energy club events, for high energy corporate events, high energy weddings. Notice that keyword, high energy. Those beams are really important for high energy stuff. If you're wanting to do gobo projection, beam's probably not going to do you a lot of good because usually beams are 4, maybe 8 degrees at the very, very widest. So you're not getting a huge, long, wide spot. Beam fixture. Tons of different kinds out there. This is one that I absolutely love, especially because you get some of the eye candy. But without the haze, they're really not going to do you a lot of good. Now, it doesn't mean that, you give up on them just because you don't use haze. Believe it or not, there's a lot of ways that you can get venues to let you use fog or haze, but that's a discussion for a later video. Now, there's two different kinds of LED type fixtures. First, you have your color mixing LED, like this guy here. And you basically have just the beam, and it's all focused through a special lens. And that lens allows you to do all sorts of color mixing. And it's not like the older kinds where you have just individual LED colors, and when you try to do two colors, it's colors side by side. This combines all the colors so you get true color mixing. This is a fantastic way to be able to do beams. And then you have moving heads that do beams with gobos. They have a regular color wheel versus color mixing LED, but they have gobos. Now, if the gobo's only this wide, why would you want to have gobos? These aren't gobos that you look at. These are gobos that create exciting beam effects. Now, in the case of this guy right here, you get a few different shaping gobos, like you get some stars and you get these trippy wavy gobos that look really cool when you're looking at the beams. But you also have gobo shapers, which allow the beam to go from a wide, fat beam to something a lot tighter and a lot cleaner. Now, this is an LED fixture, but there are beam fixtures like this that use gobos that also use a bulb. Not a traditional halogen bulb, but a platinum bulb, such as the 2R or the 5R. And believe it or not, these bulbs are actually more efficient than LEDs because of the brightness it gives you for the wattage that it takes. But again, that's a video much later on down the line. The difference between a fixture like that and a fixture like this is it may have a prism. So now you're still gonna get those really tight beams, but now it's spread out and it creates a really cool fan effect. Now this one may look like a beam fixture, but it's not. It's a spot. Why is it called a spot? Because that beam expands, and it expands quickly to make a spot. Now there's multiple kinds of these. Some of them are just a simple spot. Put a gobo, spot it in, good to go. Some of them have replaceable gobos, so you can put in your own custom gobos. Some of them, like this guy right here, have 2 gobo wheels with a focus in between. That allows me to take one gobo, layer another gobo on top, and focus it. Why would you want to do that? You can create water effects, fire effects, twinkling effects, all sorts of really cool stuff with these guys. Some of them have zoom, some of them have dual color wheels. There's tons of different options when it comes to the spots. 99% of you, you're gonna go with this guy right here. Why? Well, for one, you don't need haze. So we're gonna wait for the haze to clear out a little bit. 2, you can put your own gobos in a lot of these kinds of fixtures. And 3, they're the most affordable fixture of its kind with this kind of versatility. Because you see, depending on what you purchase and what you buy, while this one may cost more than the beam fixtures that I showed you, with this guy I can zoom in, zoom out, I can add a prism to get even more coverage. But for the money that I'm spending, I'm gonna be able to cover the most dance floor with a couple of moving lights, or preferably 4 of these guys. So when would you wanna use these? Well, if you're a wedding DJ, these are perfect. You can throw some gobos, custom gobos. You can put some decorative gobos and splash your walls. Bride and groom come in, all of a sudden those dim down, bam, now you've got a spotlight in the front. They come in, you follow them with the moving heads, and now you've got them parked on them, doing a spotlight first dance. Once that first dance is done, they walk out of the way, you just see that big spot, it focuses in, and it's focused, that was from a blurred gobo to their name. Just something really unique, different than what other people have done. This is gonna allow you to do the most with the lighting design. And if you have haze, you can do some really cool effects. One of my favorite gobos to put in is called the raindrop gobo, just tons of little droplets of rain. And when you have the haze comes in, or the haze coming in with good optics, you just see tons and tons of little beams everywhere. Put a prism on, do a rotation, have some color changes, and it's a really cool looking effect. Big fan of these guys. Again, tons of different fixtures out there. They all have different capabilities. Some of them cost more than others. Maybe you're looking for some additional options like prisms, dual gobo color wheels, zoom, focus, all done from DMX. But then you can go into the really high-end spots. And the really high-end spots have all these features, but they also are brighter. Instead of a color wheel, they may have a color mixing LED, or they may be a profile moving head. So what does a profile mean? Well, it means it's got the framing shutters. So that means that with DMX, you could actually sit there and frame it just like you would do a Leica or a gobo projector and really get creative with your designs. So again, that is the spot fixture. Works great with or without DMX. Now all the moving heads that I've talked about today come in all sorts of price ranges and sizes, including down to this little itty bitty super affordable type right here, which can be called micro moving heads or pocket moving heads, miniature, just small. This is also one of my favorite kinds of moving heads, and this is called the wash, but it's an added bonus. It also has a zoom. This particular fellow zooms from 10 to 60 degrees. So what this means is that you can go from not a really tight beam, but a semi-tight beam to a nice wide wash. How wide of a wash? You could easily do an entire country club with 4 of these and wash them out. So why would you want these, especially if they're small, or if you do bigger shows? Could a small moving head like this fit in? Well, maybe, maybe not. Brightness is something important to consider. But it's also the thought of that there are multiple kinds of these moving heads. Again, this is a small one. They make them much, much bigger. But even small ones like these, I can guarantee you 4 of these, you can do some really cool things at weddings, because I've used these quite a bit already. One of the things that I love about them is that with these, I don't need wash lights. If I want to just create a show and I'm limited on budget, I would just start off with these, honestly, because I still get the excitement and the movement of moving heads, but I get the nice static wide washes, and then I can create a little bit of fun by doing color chases. These particular ones have individual or the 2-zone LEDs. Some of them you can do individually, depends on the moving head itself. And even on a more professional field, for example, for church lighting design, I had a church that told me, it's like, look, we want to use moving heads, but we have a really, really tight budget. So should we not worry about moving heads and go with floods? I mean, floods are important. You want to flood the area. You want to add color. And I told them, like, listen, here's some different zoom lights. Let's look at your budget and we'll go from there. And why did I have to recommend a zoom light to them? Well, if we needed to just wash the pastor or a certain person, I could just do maybe a 20 or 30 degree zoom. If I needed to zoom on something in particular, or if I want to create effects for maybe their VBS, Vacation Bible School, or they have a concert, and we'll just turn it all the way to that really tight 10 degree beam. But now if I needed to wash the entire chorus, we just back all those moving heads up, do a 60 degree wash on it, and bam, that entire stage is completely washed out. And it's really great because this particular one, for example, has red, green, blue, and white RGB W LEDs. Some of them may have the hex, which is RGB, W, amber, and white, and UV. So look at the different kinds of moving heads, figure out what color spectrum you want to be at. But if you're looking at stage washes, you definitely want to have at least a true white. RGB together? No, actual white LED. I love these also because, as you can tell, you don't need haze. But with haze, you do get a really cool effect where the beam, as it's going in and out, you can actually see that beam growing and shrinking. If you're on a dance floor and you program it just right, you just have those lights, not even moving, static, point them out of the dance floor and just have them where they're moving in and out, in and out, in and out. And it just creates a really exciting effect without needing to move your moving heads. Again, just something about finding different ways in your lighting design instead of just doing the same pattern again and again. Sometimes static patterns work. If you have gobos, keeping those gobos maybe moving around or doing that gobo shake, having a shake to the music, but not having your moving heads move, or doing shutter chases. With these, I love doing hue scrolls, where it's maybe 2 or 3 different colors and it just chases from one side to the other. It's just an absolute eye candy of rainbowy goodness. Love them. This is a wash fixture, but it kind of sort of works as a beam because of that 10 to 60 degree beam zoom. So that's it. Takes us back to our beam over here. A few different kinds. Again, we've got the 3. We have our spot, the beam, the wash, and that zoom really helps kind of give you a bit between a really tight wash, almost a beam, to a nice wide wash. Now there's even more kinds of moving heads out there, including the hybrid types, but that's for a video later on. Now you know what to do. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a comment, give the thumbs up, most importantly, subscribe. My name is Arnoldo Offerman on behalf of IDJNOW. Thanks so much for watching, have a great night, and God bless.